Hello and thanks for tuning in. Today is December 6th, 2019. We are on our way to a condominium in Newtown Grant, Pennsylvania. This client has been a client since 2016. They purchased this second home. They're renovating it, renting it for a year, and then plan on moving into it. Our job today is to install a laminate floor as well as quarter round shoe molding. We painted it yesterday. This laminate flooring was actually purchased by the client and left here in this apartment for me. It's going to be going into the laundry room, which is the room that's illuminated behind me. And it's LifeProof. That's the name of the brand, LifeProof Flooring. It's a floating floor, the click-together type. And what I'm doing here is I'm pulling out the flooring from several different boxes. This way, when we put the floor in, we can choose different panels from different boxes. So if there's a slight pattern variation, it doesn't show up in a group on the floor.
Piece is 8 7/8 of an inch wide, including the little tongue. The actual top of it is 8 3/4. So the space back here, the very first piece that we have to stick in, is only 6 3/4 inches. So we already need to have a template to get around this pipe here. And I'm going to show you how we're going to cut that, how we're going to figure out what that angle is, and how we're going to get that template cut. And we need to take a razor knife and cut off some of this flooring that's sticking up in the air here. This is all low, this is not sticking up, this will all be fine. And I'm going to show you how to do that right after this. Hi, so welcome back. This here is project poster paper that you get from the dollar store. You can usually get 2 of these for $1. So I bought 4 of them, and with tax it was $2.12. And this is like making a disposable piece of flooring. And you can get probably, with this flooring, you might get two pieces out of every one of these poster boards. So that'll give me 8 different opportunities, which I will not need 8. So what you do is you take your board, your flooring, and that part there is going to go against the wall over here. But this part here is going to go against the wall. This is the tongue that's going to be sticking out that I'll attach the next piece to. Now I ain't worried about the width just yet. The width is, this here is narrower than the length of this, so I'm going to end up having to cut this off at some point. I ain't worried about that right now. What's important is when you lay this down on your poster board, you make sure it's right even with the back, okay? So when you're looking at the back of this, you see a little bit of white paper here, all the way down to the end. And that you're completely flush on that end as well. And then carefully cut the poster board with a razor knife. Careful not to cut the tongue of your flooring. And you set that part aside. That can be used for another piece of flooring. So now what you're left with is a piece of paper the same width as your flooring.
It looks like I install flooring over the dirty floor, but I actually sweep and push it behind me as I move along.
So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the factory edge. The edge that we know came from the factory with this. And we're going to sit it behind the pipe up against where we want it, leaving our 1/4 inch gap. You see that gap over there? Your flooring has to have a 1/4 inch gap. So what we're going to do, let's see if I can. You want it to be square, and you want it to have a 1/4 inch gap. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use a pencil, and we're going to mark out roughly where this pipe right about here, where one side of the pipe is, and we're going to do the same to the other side. Once we have those two lines, we're going to take a pair of scissors and we're going to make multiple cuts into the paper like this. Now the depth of these cuts, the distance from the edge, should be the distance you want this paper to move past the pipe to sit against the back wall properly. So if these are not long enough, because I didn't measure them and I should have, and I should show you how to do that. This allows this paper to bend and conform around things because of these little fingers. The way you determine the depth is you sit this up against the wall minus that 1/4 inch gap. And you cut these so that they just pass the back of the pipe. So you got the back of the pipe here, the cut goes to here. And then what you do is you sit this behind there, lining it up where you want it, the 1/4 inch gap, everywhere you need it. And you push the paper down like this. And you can use a razor knife to cut it, but what I prefer to do is I prefer to just use a pencil and lay the paper down with the pencil so it marks it as it lays it down. You see how that works? Now you see what you got here is you've got this paper, which is the same size as your flooring, and you've got that pencil mark in that arch. Now we're going to cut that out. Now I'm going to do this in the other room so I can catch all the little papers and not have to sweep them all up. So come with me. I'm going to go right in here. You're out here already? Hey, you're faster than I am. I'm going to cut it on this granite countertop only because this way the pieces fall right here and I can sweep them right up. So all I'm really doing is cutting on that line that I traced out. So you end up with this. Now, you're going to try to beat me back in there again? Because I'm going to take this in there. You're already here! You want a job? I can use a fast person like you. So here's a close-up of it. This is what it looks like. We're going to try it down there. If it fits, we'll take the next step. Come on down here. We'll lay this back here where we want it. Now I want to show you something. You see how it looks really tight here? But then we got a little bit of a gap. Now it's in the back, nobody's going to see it, but I'm going to show you how to fix that just the same. Okay? Same with over here. We got our 1/4 inch gap on the side, and it's tight. The only spot it's not tight is right there, right here on the very back of the pipe. So because we overcut that a little bit, I guess I can't blame you. I guess I overcut that a little bit. What I will do is I'll just take blue painter's tape and I will follow the contour using several little pieces to hold it close to the pipe. And then while I'm at it, I'm also going to take and tape the little fingers that I cut down onto the paper so that they don't move as easy. Now you don't have to do this step, but this does make it easier when you're going to trace this out. Same thing on the back side here. Follow the contour. Now this is what you got. Now it's right up against that stovepipe exactly where you want it. See that? So now we're going to take this and we're going to stick it onto our actual piece, trace it out, cut it with a jigsaw, and she should fit in there like a glove. Make sure you put it on here square, so it's right where it's supposed to be. Trace it out. Just like so. Hey, thanks for waiting here while I went outside and cut this. I just showed you how to do it, but I just wanted to get it cut real quick. Now, it was 39 inches from one side to the other, so I measured 39 inches and I made this mark right here. I am going to show you how I cut that. Come out here for a minute. So this here is called Easy Shear. It's made by Bullet Tools, and there's a little pin on the side you take out. And that allows the guillotine to work, and it has a handle that locks in there. Well, all you have to do is stick this in here and line it up with where the guillotine comes down, and it snaps your flooring off. This way, you can cut a piece of flooring without making a lot of dust. If you use a table saw, a skill saw, or even a miter saw, it will chew all this up and send it into the air. So you can do this right inside the house without having to make multiple trips outside by just using the guillotine. Not sponsored by anybody. All right, let's see if she fits. It's a little tight here, but we want it a little tight because it has to go that way some, and we want it to go underneath of this trim here. It needs to go under this trim here, not to it. If it's under it, it'll look nice and neat. Now it doesn't have to go under this because we're going to put cord around, but it should go under this, at least 1/8 of an inch or something, so you don't see the edge of it. I'll show you how we're going to do that. Take a piece of your scrap. This is the piece that we cut off the end of that. Take your multi-tool and you're going to cut. See if I can remove this panel real quick. You're going to stick the panel right up against Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to put this in where it belongs and sit this up against this wall. And you see how there's a 1/2 inch gap right there? So we're going to take a 1/2 inch off of there, over here. We're going to take a 1/2 inch off of here so that this side protrudes a little further. So when it slides under there, this goes up against the wall and that goes up against that. There it is. This is going to go in like this. This protrudes a 1/2 inch. That's cut. This is the middle of the molding. The door casing, I'm sorry, that's around that access panel. This is right in the middle of that door casing molding. And that's our arch. Let's see how it looks. So we're going to sit this back here. And as you can see, it don't just fall into place, okay? We might have to apply a little bit of bend to it. So what we'll do is we'll put that side in first over there so it's hugging the pipe. And then on this side I'll put my hand under it and I'll bend the flooring so that it fits underneath of it. And then we sit it down. And that's what it looks like. Nice and tight. Right around there. 1/4 of an inch gap all the way around it. And nice around our pipe too. So now we got to do one for here. And how does that work? Well, it works the same way. How are we going to use the same piece, you ask? Well, this is the way we used it before. We could technically turn it over, but it doesn't go deep enough in for that pipe. So we're just going to take a piece of the flooring. We're going to sit it on here so it's nice and square to the edge. And we're going to do the same thing we did before. Trim the paper so it's got a square edge. No sense in throwing it out. We don't need this anymore, but we'll use this in place of the next piece of wood. So let's do it. So we know that it's going to fit right up against that seam, just like that. So we need to place this. Do it this way with a 1/4 inch gap. I'm going to take our pencil, mark where our circle starts and where it ends. Then we're going to sit on top of the lip of this flooring, and we're going to mark where this end is. Right there. So that's what we end up with. Now we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make slits, and we're going to make them as deep as that line. And it's okay if you go a little bit beyond it. Like so. There's our fingers. I'm going to race you back in there. Ready? On your mark, get set, go. Son of a gun, you man, you guys are fast. You're faster than me, that's for sure. All right, back to business here. Enough of the fun stuff, right? Let's get down there. We'll do this again. Of course, if you don't quite understand what I'm doing, you could always rewind the video. But I've got an even better obstruction coming up that you're probably really gonna like. Look at that baby with all those different pipes and stuff sticking out of it. Isn't that wonderful? Now, you gotta lay, when you put this down over the pipe, you gotta make sure the paper is sitting right in the track of where the next piece of flooring is gonna sit. Both sides. Be very careful. Make sure it's right in the track. Let me show you. See how that's right in the track? Right in there. Both sides are like that. Right in the track. Because you know that's exactly where your flooring is going to sit. And like I said, you push these down around it and trace it with your pencil. Use the pressure of the pencil to push the papers down to make that nice arc. Make sure you get all of it. See that? Now we'll take this out in the other room, and I'm not going to race you this time because I already know you're faster than me. Now you got your arch. And while it may not be perfect, it'll get you started. And like I said, you can clean it up with tape. So I'm going to cut our arch out. It's okay, like I said, if it's a tiny bit bigger, you want to get as close as you can though. Sitting it back onto the piece of flooring where the other piece is going to fit. It's pretty close. And this is where we use our tape. Now I'm showing you this with the tape, not because I need it to be as close as it is. I'm actually putting a metal flange. As long as it fits, I'm putting a metal flange over this. But this is how you get the best fit of your flooring. And hold the fingers in place so they don't move on you. And with this flooring, you always want to make sure you're facing it the right direction, because if you cut this backwards, you're going to waste your product. The tongue's right here, facing the same direction, away from the wall. This is going right to the corner. And this is going right to this edge. this edge right here is where we had sitting on the lip of the previous piece. So that lip is what this locks into. So it's sitting right on there, and right along the edge here. And you can stick the tape down onto here. It'll help you so that you can trace along the tape without it moving. And then just color your arch in. Real quick, I want to show you another use for a multi-tool. If you don't dig it in, it makes a great scraper. What's holding me up is this little buckle right here. So once I'm under that buckle, I'm fine, but I'm gonna have to trim that out around that just a little bit. All right, I got that little piece cut out. And I need a little bit more, just a tiny bit more. All right, so that's the notch I made right there. Fit around that buckle or whatever it is on the side of that. Let's see what happens here. Push these together and lock them down.
So the reason I left this part in the video is to show you that even professionals have trouble and have to go back to the drawing board a few times and expand a notch or change something, or maybe even cut an entirely new board. Nobody's perfect.
There it is, cut around the pipe. Quarter round will hide the edges. All this will be held down by quarter round and hidden. Not here though. Not here, that panel will be over that. And we might get lucky and we might be able to fit the next piece in without notching it. We are. But we're gonna have to take this metal flange up right here, because it's bowed right here bad and the flooring won't ride over that. So we're gonna have to get a hammer and pull this up and then get the next piece in here, and then the next piece will just be a cutout for this. We might have to use a contour gauge for that. Might be able to use the paper too. We'll see what happens. I'll try it. The paper, if it don't work, we'll get the contour gauge out. And those are cheap, you can buy them in any store. So I'm gonna go get the measurement for this and get the next piece. Now, one of the things you have to understand is this piece is going to have to fit under here again. So we're going to measure just to this piece of trim here and here, because this is further. So this piece is 39.5. I know I said I was going to make it 39.25, but I cut it 39.5 because I remeasured our film. So 39.5. And then this side of it is going to have to be 39. So it's a ½ inch difference at this mark right here. But we'll cut the 39.5 first. I'll show you how you do it. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to sit this in here, sitting it on that piece where it's going to go. Just like that. And then you're going to have to mark
where it's going to change. So this is a 1/2 inch to here. And we're going to trim underneath of this all the way to the back of that. So about the middle of this casing trim, about the middle, 1/2 inch has to come off this side. And it's coming off the front part. The back part has to fit in. So 1/2 inch right there. And then all you do is take that corner off right here. And she should fit in here after we undercut this. Thin little piece. Look how close that is. See, it looks like it was made to fit under there. All right, so now that we know that, we're going to cut out that corner right there. And there it is. Remember what I told you, you gotta bend it. Bend it, fits under there. But you wanna make sure you're on top of that track. Yep, and look at that. It fits awesome. All right, here's something important that you need to see. So we're going to take this piece that's going to go in here, and we're going to lay it in here, making sure our side is up against the wall over there with the gap, and we're going to sit it here so we know where this notch is going to have to be cut, because we're going to have to cut this corner out to get this to slide that way. But we also need to know where this is going to sit. Now I don't need to trace out the corner on here on the paper because that's an easy cut, and I'll show you how to do that. But I do need to know that this paper is going to be right here on this board. Okay, so this paper in line with the end of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to make the mark right here of where we're going to cut that board. That's where this board's going to get cut, because for this line here, going that way, this is the mark that signifies that wall. To get this mark, we're going to have to move the board. But first, we're going to take a piece of the flooring and we're going to lay it. This is the part that clips onto the next piece. We're going to clip it onto the piece in front of it. That marks the ends of that pipe. Right there. Now we don't have a thin enough piece to do it on that side, so I'm going to go cut this real quick and I'll show you. Now we're going to hook this one on this side, giving ourselves the room we need. And I'm going to draw a line here. That marks exactly where those pipes have to be. Now in the back, there's a gap. There's nothing we can do about that. I can't cut this back out and put it back in. Once you cut that back out, it ain't gonna stay. It'll fall right in the hole. But we need to know the distance. So I clip this back on here again, onto the back piece, and I mark my distance right here. Then I can just line this up with the end of that, and I can see what my distance is right here. And draw a line. So that is the section that is required to be missing for that pipe. Am I going to cut this out? If you have been paying attention, you should say no. No, do not cut it out. What are we going to do? We're going to cut fingers. When we cut the fingers in this, we'll be able to mark around that pipe. The back of this resembles where it connects to the next piece of wood. Okay? Go ahead and make your cuts. And there's the fingers. Okay? Now let's go trace them out again. All right, so the edge of this represents where it connects to here. So we have to lay this over it and lay this piece of cardboard on that track. Exactly where that piece of wood is going to be. And then, like I said, we lay this down, we use our pencil, and we trace out the best we can. This isn't going to be as easy. We get our mark. See it? Kind of hard to see because I wrote no on there, so you got all those lines as well, but I drew it. I know pretty much where it is. So we're going to follow this, and if you're unsure, make the hole smaller. You can always make it larger after the fact. Sitting it right on there. It's pretty good. Now you see how there's a gap back here. How do you think we fix that? So that we cut the piece right. Yes, tape, of course. Now, in order to get this piece of flooring into here afterwards, there has to be an opening in the back. So I'm going to draw a line here representing where the edge of the flooring is so I can cut that tape off. Actually, I might just take a razor knife and just cut it off right where it's at. Now, if I can take this out of here without disrupting that tape, then I know I can get the board in. And I can. That strange cut right there is the cut we want on our piece. So we'll trace that out right now. Okay, so here's the piece of flooring that we laid in there, and we marked where the edge of the wall was. Don't know if you can see that. There's a little mark right here. That's where we line our paper up, because that represents the edge of that wall. And then we can tape this down. And that weird angle is the angle we need to trace out. So what we'll do is cut along here, or draw along here rather. Draw along there. And then follow our tape. That'd be almost impossible to cut or even draw using a measuring tape. Paper's the answer. So let me take this outside and I'm going to cut this out. Let me know what you think. Now, before we can put this in there, we need to cut around that corner. And I told you I was going to show you how we figured out the depth of this to cut. It's going to be a straight line because it's a, well, straight corner.
But here's the deal. We got this marked by laying this on the floor and marking it 1/4 inch away from the trim. Here's how we get this measurement. Simply lay that on an angle, but where it belongs on the wood. Take a piece of this, lay it up against there. This side represents where that is, and we just make a mark, put 1/4 inch in. When we connect those two lines with a straight edge, this is the part that gets cut out. Let's go do that now. I'm listening to an online radio station in my ear. So because if I play it on here or in the background, YouTube will give me a copyright strike. So just use a square. Put your pencil on the line and then move your square to your pencil. This way it takes into account the width of your lead and makes it right every time. And then draw a line. The other line's over here. I'm going to do the same thing. Put the pencil on the line, move the square to it, and draw a line. Now, if the square is not long enough to reach that line, that's not a problem. Just use the back end of the square, line it up with the long end of the flat part of the square, and extend your line. Then you can make this one longer so it meets. And this is what's leaving. And here's how I'm going to cut this. That's the easy way. Bet you can't do that. So that's what a board looks like. Imagine that. Let's go do this. Go see if she fits in here. Like so. Like so. And then we gotta get it up onto this board where it belongs. Get it pushed in there and locked in. Now that's not too bad. I do have some gray caulking that we can fill in around here, but I also have a metal flange that I think will go over this kind of nicely. Alright, so I've got these two plates. This one's going to go around obviously the big pipe there, and then this around here. And it has a little bit of a flange on it. In order for me to get this on there, I'm going to have to snip them. And I want to snip them so that people aren't going to see them as well. So if you're standing over here, because the washer and dryer is over here, you'll be able to see. What you won't be able to see is directly in the back, right here. So I'm just going to make a little mark, and then I'm going to cut from this side and cut that open. Oops. Like so. That should allow me to spread this to get it over the pipes, and I'll go on an angle like this so I don't bend it all to pieces. And I'm hoping that this will go around it and fit like that. And that looks a little bit better than not having something. And then I can fill this hole in here with silicone. Now what I want to show you is this. Now this is a floating floor, and with floating floors you're not supposed to nail them down. Why? Because they need to expand and contract, which means they need to move slightly. So the silicone we're going to use is going to be flexible, but the nails aren't flexible. But I want this flange on here, and I also want it to help hold these two pieces together.
as well, pushing it as far back as I can that way. So I want this flange to sit on here, and I want it to sit back like that. And I do want to nail it down, but if I nail through this, this won't move. So here's the trick. I'm going to come back in away from the end, and I'm going to start a roofing now. And then I'm going to come over here and start it again. And then I'm going to come back here and start one again. Again, staying away from the end. Mark. And then lift this up out of your way. Hopefully you can anyway. And you see the 4 marks that you've made. Now what you're going to do is take an oversized drill bit. And you're going to drill down through the floor. Just this floor. I'm going to show you a close-up here in a second. Okay, let me show you what this looks like. So you got these 4 holes, and you can see right down through to the linoleum. Now I'm going to stick this back on here. And now when I hammer this through, and it goes into that hole, the board itself can expand and contract because this nail is not nailed to this. It's nailed to this flooring here, but not to this. That hole allows this to expand and contract around it. Like so. And then we will fill it with silicone. We'll fill it full of silicone in here, and that'll hide where all the pipes come out. Now this one here, a little bit easier to do. Dead center in the back, sticker down so we don't have to see it. Sticker to the back. We are just going to cut a little off center, like so. A little off center because there's also holes there. But we're not going to nail this one down. I'm going to show you how we cut this piece now. All we got to do is sit this and clip it onto this next piece up against the wall and clipped onto here. So how do we cut this piece that goes in here? This is the way the board has to get installed. So don't flip it this way. Flip it long ways. Flip it over. So you're looking at the underside of it. Push it up against the wall. Pull back a little bit for your gap. So I said you make a mark here on the back side after flipping it long ways, and that's where I cut it. this is not going to be used. Not right now. This piece, because we flipped it, now still has the factory edge here for connecting onto this piece. All you have to do is turn it upside down. Now instead of flipping this way, well, because it doesn't really much matter, but you're going to flip it this way. Because we don't want to cut off this factory edge. So we put that up against the wall, pull back for a little bit of space, and we make our mark here. Then we cut that mark. When we put the next piece in, it has to overlap that seam, so we'll start on this side and work our way that way. Which means we can't use the cutoff piece because the cutoff piece can only be started from the right hand side, which we can hopefully use next time. Now we're going to put a full piece in. Like that. Well, how do we get this piece, you might ask? How do we know what we're cutting there? Well, we do it the same way. We know this piece has to fit in here. But we also know if we cut it right here, we won't have a factory edge to connect to this. So we flip it over end to end. We sit it in there, and I leave this visible so I know where to draw my line. I pull it away from the wall just a little bit, and I make my mark. We cut that the same way. And we'll hook it in here, like so. Bring it down into place. And lock it all in. I put the back side in and hammered this in. Not hammered. Gotta use a mallet. But there it is. Isn't that beautiful, huh? Coming along nicely. Now it's another full piece, starting from this side. Or, better yet, so we don't waste material, because we cut the factory edge off of this one that we used to make that little part, this has a factory edge. So we can put this one in place. Because you want to stagger the seams. And our seam is right here. So this piece will go on there and lock that seam in place. It comes right to there, to the edge of this. So what I want to do is I want to make a pencil line right here, because I want my transition to go past that just enough to cover the end of the wood, the flooring. So I'm going to trace this whole thing out, because I know no matter where this flooring gets put on here, it's got to go past that line in order to cover this flooring, and it's got to go past it at least 1/4 of an inch. So I trace that all the way out across the whole floor before I take this piece out of here. And then we'll take this out and hope that the floor, the carpeting, is long enough to do what we need it to do, and that is hide our transition. And I think it is.
I'm going to use this U-shaped track. You see how it's shaped like a U right here? And we're going to cut that U to fit there, and we're going to nail it in right at the edge of where this carpeting is. And then this piece snaps into it, spanning both sides, hiding both the carpet and the flooring. You want to see what these stairs look like? Let me show you. They creak. They're very unsettling to climb. Listen. Now this piece just needs to fit right in here next to the carpet, just like so. All right, so we need to install this new throw-in-place kind. First and foremost, we need to undercut these. So we'll just take our strap, stick it in here, and do that. There you go. There you go. All right, so how do we mark this piece now? So this is where our seam is. You got to always keep in mind where your seam is. So we want to use a big piece here. It's facing the right direction. We're going to line it right up on top of this piece that's already installed. We are going to line it up perfectly on that piece. See how the edges are lined up perfectly all the way across. Okay? Once you have that lined up, take another piece. Face it the same direction. This is the part that goes that way, the tongue, right? Place it right up against the metal, just like that. And trace it here. And here. Because we know that's where the door casing starts. Then we're going to shove this under the door casing and mark here. This way we know a little bit further past where that line is, because we want to be on the inside of that. Here we are going to match up straight line to here. So this is just going to come right along that and then right along there all the way to the end. And that is cut and cut out. Okay? Then we're going to take this and continue on. I'm going to put it over here and mark here. I'm going to put it here and mark here. I'm going to put it here and mark here. And then we're going to mark here as well, because that's where the edge of this door is. And then we're going to shove this underneath of there, and we're going to mark here. And on the right hand side. So we know we got to come in a little bit from this line, because that line's equal with the end of this. We want to be under it a little bit, so we want to come over here, get rid of this line here. That's just there for a reference. And that goes. And then we come here, a little bit of a gap, and we draw a line. So this piece here is what's sliding under that. So this comes all the way out to here to meet that line. And then we put this here, minus a little bit of a gap. And we draw that line.
So all of this gets cut out, and all of this along here, all the way to the end. This gets all cut out, and it goes that way in a little bit, and it goes that way all across there. That line doesn't stay there because that stays as one big piece, just like this line doesn't stay there. I wouldn't cut on these lines, but it's a good idea to erase them if you're not used to doing it. Follow that, follow that. See, this isn't here. Follow that, all the way across. This goes to here. Don't worry about that line. And then it follows around there and goes that way.
I'm gonna go cut that out with a jigsaw. There it is. There's the cut, based on the lines that we just drew. Now this video isn't about removing trim, but if you don't score the caulk line, you'll end up ripping the paint. Now do the same to the other side.
Alright, so now we can put this in here. And I didn't make any additional cuts. Not yet. So this is where the edge of the trim is here. This is where this line is going to come. It's going to come straight down here, and it's going to meet this trim. The door casing trim. Right there. So that's the line we're going to cut. Right there. So that's lined up. The other side's lined up. This is on an angle. I push it down in, and now it is locked into place. See? Right up against the T-track, and that will be covered with the trim when we put it back on. Just like that. Alright, so this job's almost done. I do need to vacuum this out real quick so there's no debris in there underneath the floor. But this is the last piece I gotta cut. It's the last piece going in. So you tell me, is it facing the right way? Should it go this way? Or should it go this way? What do you think? Tongue's here, tongue goes that way. Should go this way. That's how it's getting installed. Now what do I do? Do I push it up against the wall here and mark it? No, because I need this factory edge that's right here. I need this piece to fit over there. So what do? Do you remember? Flip it over long ways. Push it up against the wall. You can go closer, like that. Where the track is, right there. Make a mark right there. Right in the middle of the track if you want to. You can even go to the left side of the track. I'm going to snap that off. Alright, so there it is. Oh, but it don't fit. It's too big. It sticks out past here. Do you remember what we do? It's your last chance unless you want to rewind. Line it up with the other one. Below it. Before it. And below it. Make sure your scrap piece is facing the right way. Does it go this way or does it go this way? Do you know? This is the cut side that we cut, which means it goes this way. This is the flange, right? Does it go like this? Nah, pattern's wrong. Does it go like that? Yes. So we push that up against the wall. Now it wants to slide under that baseboard. Can you see that? Don't let it. Leave a gap. Leave a gap. I can't stress it. Draw a line here. Right? Move it over to the corner. Leave a gap. Do you hear me? Leave a gap. Draw a line here. Cut that line out. And this should fit right in there. Alright, so I just cut that on the with the jigsaw. It's got a factory end here and here. Gonna lock it in, lay it into place. And there it is. The last piece of the flooring. The last piece of the puzzle, I tell you. So now what we got to do after we got all this in here, we're going to put that down with silicone, fill that full of silicone, and we got to cut quarter round. I will not put the silicone down until after the quarter round is done. Otherwise I will end up with it all over me somehow. That's just what happens. All right, she's all done. Quarter rounds in, all the way around. Metals in the floor, filled with silicone so you don't see the hole. It's actually Dynaflex, and it's gray, so it's color matches the silver in the floor. Quarter round. Self-returns on all the ends. And the transition. There it is. The only thing left to do is change the outlets out next week. She wants white outlets in here. Change the outlets out, put the vents back in, and cover that plate for the old light location. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, how about giving me a thumbs up? And if you subscribe and hit the little bell, when I upload another video, you'll get to see it as well. Because YouTube does their thingy and they notify your thingy about my thingy. Yeah. Bye.